I'm 32, and my name's Marcus Bennett. The kind of guy who believes that love isn't shown through expensive gifts, but through consistency. Remembering how she takes her coffee, texting good morning even on my worst days. Leaving a note on the fridge when I know I'll be home late. That's how I've always been. But somewhere along the line, I started to realize that consistency meant nothing to someone who only saw value in what sparkled. I met Vanessa 5 years ago at a friend's engagement party. She was magnetic, the kind of person who could make a whole room tilt in her direction. I remember thinking she had this way of making you feel like you were the only one she was talking to, even when 10 other people were waiting for their turn. I didn't come from money, but I had built my own small success, a software consultancy that started out of my apartment and, over time, grew into something stable. Vanessa loved that about me, or at least she said she did. She used to tell her friends that she admired my grind, how grounded I was. But as the years went on, I noticed that admiration started to sound more like disappointment. It started with small things. When we moved in together, she'd complain that my furniture looked too practical. When I surprised her with a weekend getaway to the mountains, she'd sigh and ask why we didn't go somewhere more Instagram-worthy. It wasn't constant. She could be sweet, funny, and genuinely affectionate when she wanted to be, but her comments started leaving small dents. Little cracks in what I thought was our shared world. I ignored them. I told myself everyone has flaws, that maybe I was just being sensitive. But then birthdays and holidays became transactions. Every time I gave her something thoughtful, it somehow wasn't enough. The leather-bound journal I got engraved with her initials because she loved to write. Cute, but a bit cheap. The hand-painted portrait of us I commissioned from a local artist. Why would I want a picture of myself that doesn't even look perfect? It was like her affection had a price tag that kept increasing. I think the moment things truly shifted was our 3rd anniversary. I spent months saving up for a diamond bracelet. Delicate, tasteful, the kind of piece she'd casually mentioned wanting while scrolling through her phone one night. I remember her showing it to me on some influencer's story, saying, "This is the kind of thing I'd wear forever." So I bought it. $20,000. It was the most I'd ever spent on anything that wasn't my house or car. I didn't do it to show off. I did it because I loved her. Because I wanted to see that look on her face, the one from the early days when she used to hug me like she couldn't believe I was real. I wrapped it carefully. Even got one of those little velvet boxes that light up when you open them. I made dinner myself, her favorite lemon butter salmon with garlic asparagus. I set the table, dimmed the lights, even put on that stupid playlist she loved. It was supposed to be one of those quiet, perfect nights. When she walked in, she didn't even look up from her phone. "Oh," she said flatly. "You cooked." "Not thank you." Not even a smile, just a flat acknowledgement like I'd put on the wrong shoes. I brushed it off, poured her a glass of wine, and told her I had a surprise. I handed her the box. She took it like it was something fragile, her eyes flicking between me and the ribbon. When she opened it, she froze for a second, just long enough for me to think, maybe this was the moment that would bring us back. But then she frowned. "That's it," she said. I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she laughed, this sharp, short laugh that didn't sound like her. "It's nice, but I was expecting something real." I just stared at her. "It is real," I said quietly. "It's a 2-carat diamond bracelet. You literally showed me this exact design months ago." She rolled her eyes. "Marcus, no offense, but this doesn't exactly scream luxury. It looks basic." "I don't know. I thought you'd surprise me with something more meaningful, not jewelry from a mall." Something in me went cold. I'd bought it from a boutique jeweler downtown, the same one she used to walk by and sigh at every time we passed. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, the kind of dull, quiet anger that doesn't explode. It just seeps in. I didn't yell. I didn't say anything cruel. I just nodded, took the bracelet gently from her hands, and said, "Got it. That's all. Got it." Then I walked upstairs, packed a small bag, and left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a fight. I just drove. Slept in my office that night. The silence was heavy, but it felt clean, like breathing after being underwater too long. She didn't call. Not that night. Not the next day. A few texts trickled in, short, passive ones. Where are you? Are you really doing this? You're being dramatic. I didn't answer. I focused on work. I told myself I'd deal with everything later, that maybe she'd reflect and realize what she'd said. But instead, 2 weeks passed with nothing but silence. And then one morning, she showed up at my office. I didn't even notice her at first. My assistant just buzzed me saying, there's someone here asking for you. Says it's urgent. When I stepped into the lobby, she was sitting there, perfect hair, designer coat, a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. She held something in her hand, a piece of paper. No, not a paper, a receipt. And that's when I realized what was about to happen. She had finally looked at the bracelet again. She had seen the number on the receipt. $20,000. She looked up at me with this strange mix of guilt and panic. And before I could even say a word, she whispered, "Marcus, can we talk?" The air between us felt thick. For the first time in years, I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear what she had to say, because something told me this wasn't about love anymore. This was about value, about what she'd lost. And she was only just beginning to realize how much. She followed me into the conference room before I could even decide whether to let her in. The door closed behind her with a quiet click. And for a moment, all I could hear was the hum of the air conditioning and the sound of her heels tapping nervously on the tile. She didn't sit. Neither did I. We just stood there, me by the window, her clutching that folded receipt like it was a lifeline. "Marcus," she began softly, almost rehearsed. "I think we should talk about what happened. I overreacted that night." I studied her face. Not a hint of remorse, just calculation. The kind of look you see on someone who realizes they've overplayed their hand and are now scrambling to save face. "You didn't overreact," I said quietly. "You made yourself pretty clear." She sighed, brushing her hair behind her ear. "You know I didn't mean it like that. I thought the bracelet was fake. You can't blame me for being disappointed if I thought it wasn't real." I almost laughed, but it came out hollow. "You threw it back at me, Vanessa. You called it mall jewelry. And then you threw me away right after." Her jaw tightened. "You didn't even explain. You just walked out like some martyr. Who does that? Who gives a gift and then storms off when someone doesn't react the way they expect?" I stared at her. "You didn't just not react. You made me feel like what I gave you, what I am, isn't enough. Again." She crossed her arms, defensive now. "You're twisting this. You always do this thing where you make me out to be ungrateful when I'm just being honest. I've told you before, I like nice things. Is that a crime? You know that about me." There it was. That word. Honest. She always used it like a shield, as if cruelty wrapped in truth suddenly became noble. "I didn't buy that bracelet to impress you," I said finally. "I bought it because I thought it would mean something to us." She exhaled dramatically, like she was the one exhausted. "It does mean something. It's beautiful, Marcus. Really. I shouldn't have said what I said. I just thought, I don't know, maybe we could start over." She stepped closer, her tone softening. Her hand brushed my arm. "Can we go home? I miss you." There was a pause, a dangerous one, where my mind flashed through every version of us, laughing on road trips, cooking together, the first apartment we decorated. But then my brain reminded me of the other moments. The ones where she made me feel small. The ones where I'd come home from a 12-hour day and she'd ask why I hadn't brought her anything. The ones where she'd post selfies with captions like, "A girl deserves to be spoiled," and tag luxury brands I couldn't afford yet. "I already found a new place," I said. "I think it's better if we stay apart for now." Her expression changed instantly. Soft to cold, guilt to accusation. "You're really going to throw this away over one argument?" "Vanessa," I said evenly, "this wasn't one argument. It was the last one." She stared at me, then laughed under her breath. "Wow. You're really dramatic when you want to be." And with that, she walked out. No tears, no plea, just a dismissive flick of her hair and a look that said she still didn't believe I'd actually walk away. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. 2 days later, I started getting messages from mutual friends. Not about her, but about me. He's having a breakdown. He couldn't handle her being honest. He's jealous because she's more successful. It was subtle but clear. She was controlling the narrative. I didn't respond. I figured people would see through it, but then a photo appeared on her Instagram. Her wearing the bracelet, captioned, "When you realize you threw away something real." Gemstone emoji. The comments were endless. Friends of hers saying things like, "He's lucky you even gave him a chance," or, "Good for you, girl, you deserve better." A few people tagged me, and one even DM'd me saying, "She told everyone you bought a fake and made her feel stupid." I stared at that message for a long time. My hands shook, not from anger, but from this dull ache that someone I loved was now using me for attention. I deleted my social media that night. I couldn't stomach seeing her twist things into entertainment. Weeks passed. I buried myself in work. My friends noticed. My business partner asked if I was okay, and I told everyone I was fine. But the truth was, every time my phone buzzed, I half expected it to be her again. Another message, another apology that wasn't really an apology. And then it came. A long text, full of mixed signals. "I know you're mad at me, but can we at least talk like adults? I'm not the villain you think I am. I miss you, and I think deep down you miss me too. Let's not throw everything away over pride." I didn't respond. 3 hours later, another message. "You're really ignoring me after everything I did for you? Wow. Guess I was right. You never cared." Then another. "Fine. I'll just come by tomorrow and drop off your stuff. Maybe you'll actually face me like a man." True to her word, she showed up the next day. Except she didn't come alone. She brought her mother. Now, her mother, Patricia, had always been polite, but in that way people are when they're evaluating you. The kind of woman who greets you with a smile that never touches her eyes. From the moment Vanessa and I started dating, I could tell she saw me as temporary. She came from money, old money. And though she never said it directly, she made sure I knew I wasn't quite their kind. When they showed up at my apartment, I stayed calm. I opened the door, let them in, and gestured to the few boxes I'd already packed with Vanessa's things. "There you go," I said simply. Vanessa's mother glanced around, her nose wrinkling slightly, as if the place smelled offensive. "It's smaller than I imagined," she said. I ignored it. "I made sure everything's there. Clothes, shoes, your camera equipment." Vanessa sighed. "You didn't have to go through all this trouble." "I didn't," I said. "I just wanted it done." That stung her a little. I could tell. She looked at her mother, who stepped forward with that self-satisfied air people get when they're about to deliver a lecture. "Marcus," Patricia began, "I think you're making a mistake. Relationships take work. You can't just run away every time someone says something you don't like." Vanessa's been very upset. "She didn't mean to hurt you." I smiled faintly. "She didn't just hurt me, Mrs. Crawford. She disrespected me." "That's different." Patricia tilted her head as though I were a stubborn child. "Oh, come now, don't be so sensitive. You're a man. You can handle a little attitude. Vanessa just wants the finer things in life. There's nothing wrong with that." There it was. That same tone Vanessa used, now in her mother's voice. Like wanting more, justified stepping on whoever couldn't give it fast enough. "I gave her plenty," I said quietly. Her mother smiled. "Clearly not enough." I felt my jaw clench, but I stayed composed. "If she wants more, that's fine. She just won't find it with me." Patricia's smile faltered. Vanessa stepped forward. "You're really done with me?" she asked, her voice trembling just enough to sound rehearsed. "I was done when you treated love like a receipt," I said. "And now you've brought your mom to return it." The silence after that was thick. Patricia's face hardened. "You'll regret this, Marcus. My daughter is a good woman. You'll never find anyone who will love you like she did." I looked at Vanessa then, her perfectly polished nails gripping the receipt in her hand, the same one she'd mocked me over weeks ago. I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not heartbreak, but something colder. Clarity. I hope not, I said quietly. They left soon after, but I could feel the storm brewing. Because with people like that, walking away cleanly was never an option. Over the next few days, more whispers started. Clients mentioned seeing things online. Vague posts, but obvious enough. Some people pretend to be generous just to look good, one of Vanessa's captions read. Another said, real love isn't about gifts. It's about honesty, even when the truth hurts fragile egos. And just like that, I became the villain in her story. But she had no idea that she'd started something she couldn't control. Because what she couldn't realize, was that the world she thought she controlled was about to turn on her. She thought she'd thrown away a bracelet. But what she really threw away was the last person who ever looked at her without a price tag. And soon she'd learn just how costly that mistake would be. It was about a week later when everything truly started to unravel. I was sitting at my desk late one night, finishing a proposal for a major client, when I got a notification on my phone, a tag on Facebook from an old college friend. The post had one of those clickbaity captions. When your ex thinks he's the victim but forgot what he did behind closed doors. Grimacing face emoji. I frowned, clicked it, and felt my stomach drop. It was a photo of me and Vanessa, one from over a year ago when we'd gone to Napa Valley. Except the caption wasn't about the trip. It was about me. Just found out my ex was secretly seeing someone else while we were together. Guess that explains why he was so busy all the time. Funny how people can play the nice guy act while lying straight to your face. I stared at the screen for a full minute before I even processed it. The comments were already piling up. Friends of hers, coworkers of hers, even people I barely knew. Wow, I always knew there was something off about him. She deserves better. She gave him everything. He's a manipulator, 100%. Someone even shared it to a local relationship gossip page. I could feel the blood drain from my face. I hadn't cheated, not even close. But the way she'd worded it, secretly seeing someone else, it sounded plausible enough to people who wanted a show. I texted her once, just once. Why are you posting lies about me? No reply. An hour later, she posted an Instagram story. Never argue with a narcissist. They'll only prove your point. I remember just sitting there, staring at my screen, realizing she was deliberately trying to destroy my reputation, not just as a boyfriend, but as a person. The truth didn't matter. What mattered was the narrative, and she was damn good at crafting one. By morning, a few of our mutual acquaintances had quietly stopped following me. My business's social media page even lost a few clients, small ones, but it still stung. One of my interns pulled me aside that day and said, "Hey, man, I don't want to make this weird, but are you okay? I saw some stuff online." I lied and said I was fine, but I wasn't. I didn't sleep much that week. My appetite disappeared. I tried to focus on work, but every time I opened my phone, there was another post, another vague quote, another comment thread full of strangers psychoanalyzing me like I was a character in a TV show. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. I got an email from a client, one of the biggest accounts my company had. "Marcus, we need to talk," it said. I jumped on the call immediately, trying to stay calm. The client, Jonathan, sounded awkward, hesitant. "Listen," he said, "I don't want to get into your personal life, but one of my partners came across some things online. I guess your ex posted screenshots." My blood ran cold. "Screenshots of what?" He hesitated. "Messages between you and someone named Lauren." Lauren was my operations manager. A friend. Married, mother of 2. We texted constantly, but it was always about work. "I can explain," I said quickly. "If those are the messages I think they are, they've been edited. There's nothing romantic about them. She's my colleague." He sighed. "I figured as much. But the board's nervous. You might want to get ahead of it before it spreads further." After we hung up, I opened Instagram again, and sure enough, there it was. A blurred screenshot of a text thread, my name clearly visible at the top. The messages looked real. Same tone, same timestamps, but twisted. Edited. The words, "I want you," inserted into a conversation that had originally been about product design. She'd actually faked evidence. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't a breakup. This was character assassination. I called Vanessa. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. I texted her. "You went too far this time. Take those posts down before I contact a lawyer." Her reply came 10 minutes later. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before walking out on someone who loved you. Actions have consequences, Marcus." I just sat there, the phone in my hand, the words replaying in my head like static. Actions have consequences. That's what she called it. Revenge dressed as justice. The next morning, my inbox was full of messages. A few clients pulled out of contracts. One even cited reputation risk. My business partner, Trevor, came into my office looking uneasy. "Dude," he said quietly, closing the door behind him. "We need to talk about this whole situation with Vanessa." I sighed. "You too?" He shrugged. "It's not about taking sides, man. It's about perception. People are saying some pretty serious stuff." "Yeah, because she made them up," I snapped. "I know, but perception becomes reality fast. You need to do damage control before this tanks the company." The words hit me like a brick. My company, the thing I had built from scratch, now being dragged through the mud because someone decided to rewrite the story. That night, I went to Vanessa's apartment. I don't even remember the drive there. I just remember standing outside her door, my hands shaking with anger. She opened the door, perfectly calm, dressed like she'd been expecting me. "Wow," she said dryly. "Didn't think you'd actually show up. What is wrong with you?" I said quietly. "You're spreading lies. You're ruining my business, my reputation." She cut me off. "Oh please, don't act like the victim. You left me humiliated, Marcus. Everyone thought you dumped me for no reason. I just told the truth." "That's not the truth," I snapped. "You're fabricating screenshots." She folded her arms. "Prove it." I froze. That smug look in her eyes. She knew exactly what she was doing. "You don't get it, do you?" she continued. "People believe what they feel, not what's real. You made me feel worthless. Now you know what that's like." I took a deep breath. "You're going to regret this." Her lips curled into a faint smirk. "Maybe. But you'll regret it more." I walked away before I did something I'd regret. But as I got into my car, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. A familiar black Mercedes parked a few spots down. I recognized it instantly. Her mother's. And sitting in the passenger seat, phone in hand, was her mother, filming me. That's when I realized this wasn't spontaneous. This was coordinated. They wanted footage of me confronting her, looking angry, desperate, unstable. A nice little clip to pair with the story she'd already spun online. I drove off, shaking with rage. For days after, I avoided social media, avoided calls. Even my employees started noticing I wasn't myself. I could see it in their eyes, a mix of pity and hesitation, like they didn't know whether to believe me or not. Then one morning, a letter arrived at my office. No return address, just my name on the envelope. Inside was a printed copy of a post from a gossip site, a full article titled, "Local Tech Entrepreneurs Affair Scandal, What Really Happened Behind the Scenes." The article detailed my infidelity, my emotional manipulation, and even mentioned that I gifted multiple women jewelry while dating his fiancée. There were quotes from anonymous sources, all clearly her friends, describing me as controlling and dismissive. But what really hit me was the final paragraph. Sources confirmed that Marcus Bennett's business is under review for workplace misconduct following complaints from female employees. It was a complete fabrication, but that single line was enough to start an investigation. HR contacted me. The board called an emergency meeting. My lawyer friend advised me to lay low until it blew over. It felt like every piece of my life was being systematically dismantled by someone who once claimed to love me. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by silence. No TV, no music, just the sound of my own breathing and the faint hum of city traffic outside. I thought about the moment she'd scoffed at that bracelet, the contempt in her voice. And then I thought about the receipt she'd held when she came to my office. The exact moment she realized she'd thrown away something real. That was the moment she decided to destroy me. Not because she wanted me back, but because she couldn't stand that she'd lost control. And somewhere deep down, I realized she wasn't done. Not yet. Because people like Vanessa don't just stop when they've hurt you. They stop when you're beneath them again, when they've turned your pain into their proof of victory. But she had underestimated one thing. I might have been quiet, but I wasn't broken. And while she was busy weaving lies online, she had no idea I was starting to pull at the loose threads of her perfect image, one by one. The week after that article dropped felt like living inside a fog. Every sound was distant. Every conversation heavy with unspoken judgment. My name, once something I was proud of, attached to a company I'd built with my bare hands, now sounded foreign. Tainted. I started avoiding the office. At first, I told myself I was just working remotely. But deep down, I couldn't face the looks. Even the sympathetic ones hurt. You can always tell when someone's pretending not to pity you. The board suspended me temporarily while the review took place. My lawyer called it standard protocol, but it didn't feel standard. It felt like exile. The company I had built from a laptop and late nights in my living room was now being handled by a committee I barely trusted. Trevor, my co-founder, tried to be supportive, but even he was different now. Cautious. Distant. "Look," he said one afternoon on the phone, "I believe you, okay. But investors are nervous. You know how fast rumors spread. We need to be careful." Be careful. That's what everyone kept saying. No one said, "This is wrong" or "We'll fight it." Just be careful. Like I was the problem now. I started noticing the silence in my apartment too. There was no laughter, no background hum of her presence, just quiet. I'd wake up and check my phone out of habit, half expecting her name to flash on the screen. Not because I wanted to talk, but because a part of me still didn't understand how someone I'd loved could hate me this much. The worst part wasn't losing her. It was losing the version of myself I'd been when I was with her, the one who still believed that love, effort, and loyalty actually meant something. One night, around 2 in the morning, I sat on the floor beside my bed and stared at that same velvet bracelet box. I'd taken it with me the night I left, without even realizing it. The bracelet still shone under the faint light from the street lamp outside. For a long time, I just looked at it, not as a symbol of her anymore, but as a reminder. That's when something inside me shifted. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was just tired. But beneath that exhaustion, a strange kind of calm started to form. The kind that comes when you've lost so much that there's nothing left they can take. I didn't know it yet, but that was the beginning of my plan. Before that though, things had to get worse. The next morning, I got an email from my landlord. Apparently, someone had called the property management company, claiming I was harassing my ex and had anger issues. They were reviewing my lease to determine whether I posed a risk. It didn't take long to figure out who made that call. Vanessa had crossed a new line, one that reached into my personal space. I could almost picture her doing it, sitting with her mother, rehearsing her tone to sound concerned but innocent. "I just want to make sure he's okay. He's been unstable lately." The manipulation was surgical. She didn't shout or rant online anymore. Now she was planting quiet poison. Whispers, concerns, doubts, the kind of rumors that sound believable precisely because they're subtle. I met with my lawyer again that week, who told me the HR investigation would likely clear me, but it could take a few more weeks. A few weeks. That's all it took to dismantle everything. I stopped sleeping entirely. The stress started bleeding into my body. Migraines, nausea, constant tension in my chest. Some mornings I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding from dreams I couldn't even remember. One day, I got a call from my mom. She'd seen something online too. "Marcus," she said carefully, "honey, what's going on with that girl? People are saying." "I know what they're saying, Mom," I interrupted. "Well, you know how your aunt is," she continued awkwardly. "She sent me screenshots. I told her not to believe everything she reads. But..." She trailed off. But you want to ask if it's true. There was silence on the other end. That's what hurts most, I said quietly. Even you don't sound sure. I'm just worried, she whispered. Yeah, I said. So am I. When we hung up, I stared at my phone for a while, realizing how deep the damage had gone. She hadn't just taken my reputation. She'd taken people's confidence in who I was. Even my own mother's voice had changed when she said my name. I started walking late at night, just to think. Through the city streets, through the empty park near my building, sometimes by the water. It helped a little. The rhythm of it, the air, the distance from everything. That's when I started piecing things together. Vanessa thrived on two things, image and control. Every move she made was about shaping perception, how people saw her, how they saw me. She didn't care about truth. She cared about attention, about making sure she never looked like the one who lost. But that also meant something else. If her reputation was her currency, then it could be broken. Still, I wasn't ready yet. I didn't want revenge. Not at first. I wanted peace. I wanted to breathe again without flinching. So I did what I hadn't done since before I met her. I disconnected. I deleted my social media accounts, changed my number, told Trevor I was taking a break from the company until the review was over. I packed a bag, drove out of the city, and rented a cabin in the hills, 2 hours away. The silence there was different. Clean, not suffocating. Mornings smelled like pine and rain. Nights were filled with crickets instead of city noise. I'd sit on the porch with a cup of coffee, just listening to the wind. At first it felt empty, but then slowly it started to feel like recovery. I read books again. I cooked my own meals. I slept, actually slept, for the first time in weeks. I started writing too, not for anyone else, but for me. Just thoughts, reflections, pieces of myself I'd buried under years of keeping someone else happy. It was like rebuilding from ashes, one quiet moment at a time. But even peace has a way of getting interrupted. About 10 days into my self-imposed exile, I got an email from Trevor. Subject line, need to talk. I opened it, expecting another update about the investigation. Instead, the first line made my stomach tighten. Vanessa reached out to the board. Apparently, she'd sent a long, dramatic letter to my company's investors, positioning herself as a concerned former partner who wanted to expose unethical behavior before more people got hurt. She claimed she had proof that I'd been hiding financial misconduct. None of it was true, but perception doesn't wait for evidence. The board froze my access to all company accounts pending review. I was officially locked out of the business I had built. That was rock bottom. I remember just sitting there in that quiet cabin, staring at my laptop screen as the rain hit the windows. It wasn't anger anymore. It was disbelief, the kind that makes your mind go blank. I'd given her love, security, trust, and in return, she'd stripped me of everything I valued. And yet, in that moment, something remarkable happened. I didn't feel broken. I felt awake. Because now there was nothing left to lose. I closed my laptop and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Every ounce of energy I'd spent trying to defend myself, to prove my innocence, had been wasted. Vanessa had taught me something without realizing it. People will believe whatever makes them feel smartest. The truth doesn't matter until it's undeniable. And that's what I decided I would make it. Undeniable. The next morning, I made a list. A calm, meticulous list. Names, dates, documents, screenshots, conversations, the real ones. I remembered every time she borrowed my laptop, every shared cloud folder she forgot to remove me from, every message she'd sent to her friends bragging about, teaching me a lesson. I started collecting quietly, not for revenge, not yet, but for clarity. For proof. For the moment when she'd overreach, as people like her always do, because I knew Vanessa. She couldn't stop herself. She'd push until she thought she'd won. And when she did, that's when I'd be ready. But for now, I sat in that cabin, listening to the rain and letting the plan form, piece by piece, in my head. Not out of rage, but out of purpose. It wasn't about destroying her. It was about taking back the story she stole from me. It's strange how calm revenge feels when it's no longer driven by anger. It's colder, quieter, like precision instead of chaos. That's where I was, sitting in that mountain cabin with my laptop open, a notepad beside me, and a single purpose echoing in my head. Take back control. The first step wasn't about her. It was about me. I needed to rebuild before I could strike back. My reputation was bleeding, my company on pause, and my name reduced to a whisper of gossip. But I still had something she didn't. Proof. And patience. I started by documenting everything. Every lie she'd posted, every anonymous source quote that matched her friend's wording, every fake screenshot. I'd already backed up our old messages before I left, and as I reread them, I noticed things I hadn't before. Patterns. Timestamps. Inconsistencies in her stories. And then I found it. A series of texts she'd sent her friend, bragging about editing the perfect receipts to make me look like a creep. She hadn't deleted the cloud backup. It was all still there. The exact same night she posted the first evidence against me, she'd written, "It's hilarious how easy it is. If he wants to act like the victim, fine. Let's see how his company handles a little PR nightmare." I remember staring at that message, reading it 3 times over. It was like watching a switch flip in my head. The guilt, the heartbreak, the helplessness, all of it just evaporated. She wanted to play dirty. Fine. But I play smart. I called my lawyer, a friend from college named Rachel. She listened silently as I laid out everything, the fake screenshots, the false harassment claim, the social media smear campaign. When I finished, she said, "Marcus, this is a defamation case waiting to happen. You have her dead to rights." "I don't want a lawsuit," I said. "Not yet. I want her to feel it before it ever reaches a courtroom." Rachel paused. "So what's your plan?" "Reputation for reputation," I said. But done quietly. Over the next few weeks, I started reaching out to people who actually mattered. Investors, clients, colleagues who distanced themselves, not to defend myself, but to present facts. I showed them the messages, the evidence of doctored screenshots, the timestamps that didn't match. The reaction was almost identical across the board. Shock, then guilt. Jonathan, the client who'd almost dropped me, apologized personally. "Marcus, I'm sorry I doubted you. This is insane." Trevor, my co-founder, called me after the board reviewed everything. "They reinstated your access. The investors are furious at her for trying to manipulate them. And they want you back as CEO." I felt something I hadn't in months. Relief. Not from vindication, but from control. But that was just step 1. Step 2 was letting Vanessa expose herself. People like her can't resist attention. It's like oxygen. The moment she sensed she was losing it, she'd act out. And she did, right on schedule. About a week after I was reinstated, she posted another dramatic story. A black background, white text. "When narcissists realize their games don't work anymore, they play the victim again. Watch out." Then a selfie, teary-eyed, captioned, "Healing from manipulation." The comments poured in. Sympathy, validation, encouragement. She basked in it. But this time, I didn't respond. I didn't even look directly. I just waited. Because I knew what was coming. And it came 2 days later. A journalist reached out to her, one of those online column writers who specialized in relationship exposés. He'd seen her posts and offered to share her side of the story. Of course, she said yes. And of course, she exaggerated again, claiming I'd used her emotionally, that I'd stolen her work ideas, that she'd been the real victim. What she didn't know was that the journalist was a friend of mine. Not close, but close enough. When the article came out, it looked like another sympathy piece, until readers started noticing the contradictions. A comment under the article went viral. "Funny how her evidence uses the same font and formatting as an editing app. Also, her timestamps are inconsistent. This doesn't add up." Then another. "Did anyone else notice the bracelet she's wearing in her post? Same one she called fake in an old photo." I didn't post anything. I didn't need to. The internet did the work for me. Within hours, people started digging deeper. Someone found screenshots of her bragging in group chats. Others uncovered inconsistencies in her timeline. Every thread pulled led to another lie unraveling. Her comments section turned from support to interrogation. Wait, didn't you say he cheated? But now you're saying he was controlling. You admitted he gave you that bracelet and you threw it away. Why are you still wearing it? Are you sure you're not just bitter he moved on? She tried to fight back, posting long captions about toxic exes and internet trolls. But every defense only made her look worse. Screenshots of her contradictions spread faster than anything she'd ever said about me. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. The company bounced back stronger than before. The investors rallied behind me, partly out of guilt, partly out of respect for how I'd handled it. Clients returned, and a few new ones signed on, impressed by how gracefully I dealt with the smear campaign. I started getting invites again, to panels, to industry events, to interviews. Ironically, my reputation for being falsely accused became the very thing that made people admire me. But I wasn't done yet. I still had the bracelet, the symbol of how this all started. The moment she decided I wasn't enough, I knew exactly what to do with it. I donated it to a charity auction supporting domestic abuse survivors. The organizers loved the idea, especially when I told them the story in vague terms. A gift once rejected, now repurposed to help others. They publicized it heavily. When the auction went live, it got picked up by local media. One article ran the headline, "Tech entrepreneur donates $20,000 diamond bracelet to support women rebuilding after toxic relationships." It went viral. And right there in the attached photo was her bracelet. Within hours, people connected the dots. They recognized it from her old posts. The same design, the same pattern. The comments were brutal. Wait, isn't this the bracelet Vanessa threw away? This is poetic justice. Imagine rejecting something that ends up saving lives. That was the first time she went completely silent online. No posts, no stories, nothing. But the universe wasn't done balancing itself yet. A week later, an anonymous Twitter thread appeared, detailing her lies complete with screenshots, timestamps, and voice recordings. It wasn't me. Someone else had compiled it all, someone tired of watching her manipulate people. I didn't ask who. I didn't need to. When I saw that thread trending, I closed my laptop and smiled. Not because she was exposed, but because I hadn't lifted a finger. She'd built her own downfall, one lie at a time. All I did was stop trying to protect her from it. A few months later, I went back to that same restaurant where I'd given her the bracelet. I sat at the same table, ordered the same wine. The waiter didn't recognize me, which somehow felt right. I wasn't the same person. While I was paying the bill, I heard a voice behind me. Hesitant. Soft. Marcus. I turned. Vanessa. She looked different. Thinner. Exhausted. The confidence she used to wear like armor was gone. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, trying to smile. Neither did I. She hesitated. "I heard about the auction." "That was really thoughtful of you." I nodded. "Thanks." She looked down at her hands. "I didn't mean for things to get so ugly." I said nothing. "I was hurt," she continued quietly. "I thought if I could control the story, it would hurt less." "It usually doesn't," I said. For a second, I almost saw the person I used to love, the one before the lies, before the bitterness. But that version of her was gone, buried under the one who tried to destroy me and lost. When I stood to leave, she whispered, "Marcus, do you ever think about what we could have been if things were different?" I met her eyes for a moment. "Yeah," I said softly. But they weren't. And then I walked out. As I stepped into the evening air, I realized something. Revenge isn't about watching someone else fall. It's about rising so high that they can't reach you anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel angry or bitter or haunted. I just felt free. The fallout came slower than I expected. It didn't happen in a burst of drama or a screaming match in public. It was quieter, like a slow undoing. The kind of collapse that starts invisible and then suddenly becomes impossible to ignore. After that night at the restaurant, I didn't hear from Vanessa again for months. I didn't check her social media, though I didn't need to. People sent me things without asking. Screenshots, posts, whispers about how things were falling apart for her. I tried not to care, but part of me did. Not out of vengeance, but curiosity. You spend years of your life loving someone, even if they hurt you, and some part of you still wants to know what becomes of them. It started with small things. Her influencer sponsorships dropped off one by one. A skincare brand she'd promoted for years quietly stopped tagging her. A podcast she'd been a guest on deleted her episode. Her followers noticed. Questions started to surface. Why did the brand stop working with you? What happened with your ex? He seems to be doing fine. Is it true you fake things? At first, she ignored them. Then she tried to fight back, long captions about online bullying, about how she was tired of people misunderstanding her. But the comments didn't buy it anymore. The internet has a short memory for sympathy and a long one for hypocrisy. Eventually, she deleted her accounts altogether. The world moved on, but quietly I knew she hadn't, because every few months I'd get an email, never from her main address, always from some new one. Always vague, always circling the same regret without naming it. I'm sorry for how things ended. I was young. I didn't know what I was doing. I hope you're happy. I never replied, but the truth is, I did forgive her. Not in words, not in some grand gesture, but in the way you forgive a storm for flooding your house. You don't excuse it. You just rebuild stronger. And I did rebuild. The company not only recovered, it grew. The incident had ironically made it more visible, and I used that platform to build something better. I launched a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs, focusing on mental health, integrity, and resilience. It wasn't branding. It was therapy disguised as leadership. And it worked. People respected it. I started speaking at events, getting interviewed, sharing what I'd learned about business, but also about trust and the kind of quiet strength that comes from losing everything. One day, about a year after everything happened, I got a call from Trevor. You might want to see this, he said, and sent me a link. It was a local news article, one of those small, tucked-away pieces most people would scroll past. But not me. Former influencer Vanessa Crawford sentenced for defamation and falsifying digital evidence. The article detailed how another man, someone she dated briefly after me, had filed a lawsuit when she tried the same thing again. This time, she hadn't been as careful. He'd traced her edits, subpoenaed the original files, and uncovered a pattern of manipulation spanning multiple people. The fake screenshots, the harassment claims, the emails, all fabricated. It wasn't a long sentence, just community service and probation, but it was enough to make everything public. Enough to make her name, the name she once polished like glass, synonymous with deceit. I sat in silence after reading it. Not happy, not triumphant, just quiet. Because I knew that was the real punishment. Not the community service, not the fines, but the loss of credibility, the one thing she built her whole life around. Later that week, I got one final email, the last one she ever sent me. I know I don't deserve it, but I wanted you to know I told the truth to them, to everyone, about you. I admitted what I did. You didn't deserve any of it. I just wanted to feel in control. You were good to me, Marcus, better than I ever said out loud. I'm sorry I tried to ruin you. I hope you're still wearing that smile you always talked about. For a long moment, I just stared at the words. There was a kind of broken honesty in them. Not enough to undo what she'd done, but enough to make me believe she finally understood. I didn't respond, but I printed it. Not out of sentiment, but as a reminder of how far I'd come. I tucked it in a drawer beside the charity auction photo, the bracelet gleaming under the lights, the caption beneath it reading, "From Pain to Purpose." A few months later, I found myself back in Napa Valley, the place where that old photo of us had been taken, the one she used to start the rumors. This time, I wasn't there for work or for someone else. I was there because I wanted to be, because I could be. The sun was setting over the vineyards, the air warm and gold. I sat on the same overlook where we'd once watched the sunset together years ago. Back then, she'd leaned on my shoulder and said, "You're too good for this world," and I'd laughed, thinking it was a compliment. Now I understood it wasn't. What she meant was, "You're too kind to see what's coming." I smiled at the thought, not bitterly, but peacefully, because now I did see. That night, I met up with Trevor for dinner. We talked about the company, about life, about how crazy that year had been. He raised a glass and said, "You know, I still can't believe how you handled it. Most people would have tried to destroy her back." I laughed quietly. "She destroyed herself. I just stopped getting in the way." He grinned. "Still, that bracelet story, that's going to go down in company legend." We both laughed. But when the laughter faded, I felt a strange wave of gratitude. For all of it. For the heartbreak, for the chaos, even for the silence that came after. Because without it, I never would have become who I was now. When I got back to my hotel that night, I opened my balcony door and just listened to the wind. The same feeling I'd had in that cabin months ago returned. Calm, grounded, real. No more anger, no more need for revenge, just peace, earned the hard way. A few weeks later, I got a message from a journalist writing a book about digital defamation cases. He wanted to interview me, not as a victim, but as an example of recovery and resilience. I almost declined, but then I thought of something Rachel, my lawyer, once told me. The best revenge isn't just living well. It's being undeniable. So I said yes. When the book came out a year later, there was a chapter titled, "The Men Who Let Go of the Match." It detailed everything. How I stayed silent, how I rebuilt, how the truth eventually caught up on its own. That chapter got quoted in dozens of articles, podcasts, and panels. And every time someone brought it up, I felt that same quiet pride. Not for winning, but for surviving without losing myself. Because in the end, that's the thing Vanessa never understood. You can't destroy someone who's already chosen peace over power. The last time I ever saw her was purely by chance. I was walking through the city after a conference, and she was coming out of a cafe. She looked older, not in years, but in energy. When she saw me, she froze for a moment, then gave me a small, weary smile. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey," I replied. There was no tension, no bitterness, just two people who had once shared a chapter, now standing in completely different books. She hesitated, then said, "You look happy." "I am," I said simply. She nodded, looked like she wanted to say more, then didn't. She just walked away, and that was it. No dramatic goodbye, no apology, no closure speech. Just quiet, the kind that means everything's finally over. As she disappeared into the crowd, I felt something deep inside settle completely, like a door closing behind me. I turned the other way and kept walking. Not because I needed to leave her behind, but because I already had. In the end, Vanessa lost what she valued most, her image, her audience, her control. And I gained what I didn't even know I'd been missing. Myself. That bracelet had started it all. A gift meant to symbolize love. Rejected as not real. But the truth was, it was real. It always had been. She just couldn't see the value of something that didn't come with a price tag. Now it was gone, turned into something good. Something bigger than either of us. And me. I finally understood the quiet power of walking away. Not as surrender, but as victory. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's the peace that comes when you realize you've already won.